So welcome everyone to the I2N's Startup Stories with Bal, Pat and Tim. We'll be talking this evening. I'm the program coordinator at the University's I2N. And before we jump into our event, I'd just like to acknowledge that I'm hosting this in-person and virtual event from the lands of the Awabakal and Warramai people. I also acknowledge the traditional custodians of the various lands on which you are all joining us from today, and the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people participating in this event. I pay my respect to elders past, present and emerging, and celebrate the diversity of Aboriginal peoples and their ongoing cultures and connections to their lands and the waters of Australia. You here and in the chat virtually with us today can show your respect and awareness of the country you are joining us from by letting us know using the chat function at the bottom of your screen. The chat function is also where you can connect and comment with other attendees and field your questions for the team to answer later on in the event. So for those of you new to the I2N, we're an initiative of the University of Newcastle with the central aim as a catalyst for regional transformation through enterprise skill development, new venture creation and entrepreneurship. And at the heart of the I2N is a strategically placed entrepreneurship centre in Newcastle CBD, offering incubation facilities that are complemented by a series of connection events, cohort-based programs that cover individual enterprise skill development, pre-startup creation, new venture establishment and acceleration and innovation development for existing SMEs. All industry sectors are supported, extending beyond the traditional tech-based startups to include social innovation and creative industries. In just under 4 years of operation, and with the support of the New South Wales Government's Boosting Business Innovation Program, the I2N has welcomed over 4,000 entrepreneurs through our doors and a range of industries and sectors, and at many stages of their journey, regardless of their affiliation to the university. We've helped grow, fuel and graduate more than 70 businesses, and they've gone on to raise 6 million in funding and have fostered the creation of dozens of jobs and work integrated learning opportunities for our students. They've acquired customers, won awards, grown teams and developed products and solutions delivering real world impact. The I2N is recognised as having a leading and unique capacity to act as a connector and enabler of entrepreneurship and innovation within the Hunter region, utilising the skills of experienced program developers, facilitators, mentors, and coaches. If you need any other information, hit us up at newcastle.edu.au/I2N. So a little outline for the format for this evening's event. We've taken a number of questions from attendees like you here in the room and those with us virtually. And we'll be leading with those questions after our speakers present a 10 to 15 minute talk about their background and startup journey. We'll then open it up at the end if we have any time for questions that you enter via the Zoom chat. For those joining us in person, if you need to use the toilet, they're at the back. And if there's an emergency for any reason, we'll just go through the front doors and muster at the corner of Hunter Street and Derby Street. For those joining us from home, you know the rules already. So our guests this evening are Bal, Pat and Tim from Borne Clothing, which is a social enterprise that creates high quality, mozzie repelling clothing while donating a portion of their profits to the United Nations Nothing But Nets Foundation, who go on to provide mosquito nets and medication for those who otherwise couldn't afford it. Bal and the team have founded their venture as part of the University of Newcastle's Grand Challenge in 2019. It was an institution-wide initiative that helps participants solve the local and global problem of mosquitoes. And they were awarded project funding alongside the Judge's Choice Award and the People's Choice Award, which helped kickstart their idea and hit the ground running. They've gone on to earn a place in Macquarie's Kickstarter program and return for our Grand Challenge in 2020 and received project funding for an additional initiative under the Borne Clothing brand. The three have balanced all their responsibilities as engineering and medical students at the university, along with kicking off this venture as part of the Grand Challenge. And I'd like to welcome the three of you all this evening and thank you for the time presenting to us at Startup Stories. Thank you.
Thanks for that intro, Rich. It's really good to be here today, and g'day to everyone virtually as well. So yeah, thanks for introducing us. Really, it all started back in 2019. And I think it started, Bal and I were still students. We were medical students. We were just about to graduate and looking forward to a lifetime of paying taxes. Pat was already doing so, and so was Dan. And in 2019 as well, that was when UON started their Grand Challenge, which really was an initiative to kick off innovation entrepreneurship, which obviously worked pretty well, we think. And the topic was twofold really. How do you solve the problem of mosquitoes locally in our community? Anyone who's been to the Callaghan campus will know why that's such an important issue. And then also, how do you solve the health burden that mosquitoes pose internationally around the world? So Bal and I, medical students at the time, really saw this. We really had an interest in global health equity. And we started with a core belief that no matter where you live, you should be able to live a life free of preventable disease. So that's kind of been at the core of our business since, and really an ethos that we live by. We heard about the Grand Challenge, we got involved, and really we assembled a bit of a ragtag crew. So myself and Bal were medical students at the time. We're now doctors working here. Pat's a mechatronics engineer, so handles all of our website development. And Dan, who's not here with us today, he's a graphic designer, and he handles all our design and marketing, really. So when the Grand Challenge kicked off, we thought we'd start dreaming up some pretty big and bold ideas. We thought, okay, is there a way that we can use drones to look at changing mozzie patterns, in response to global warming around the world? Is there a way that we can develop neonatal mosquito protection kits for mums and bubs who are at risk of malaria and other mosquito-borne diseases? A lot of weird and wonderful thoughts and ideas, but really it kind of came down to something a bit more simple.
And then after a chat with Siobhan about our ideas, we were coming along with, we learned our first big lesson. So excuse me. As a few guys in Newey with not much money in our pockets, there was very little we could do to put an end to global disease. There was no problem dreaming big. We absolutely should aim for an insanely difficult and ambitious goal. But the steps we should take along the way to get there need to be reasonable and achievable. We realized then that the only way we could make a difference was by mobilizing other people. So we went back to the drawing board and approached the problem as if it were an engineering problem or a diagnosis. What is it that we're trying to fix? How can we diagnose the cause of the problem? How can we fix it? Everyone has been bitten by a mozzie. It might just mean an itchy evening for some of us, but for millions, it could mean a deadly disease. How can we use that universal experience to create change?
So at this point, we sort of had our why, I guess the building block and the main motivation behind what our mission was. And now we had to figure out what our what was. What is it that we were actually going to do to get there? And what struck us was this idea of connecting people through shared experience. As mentioned, everyone's been bitten by a mozzie, so it wasn't an experience that was too far away from people's fingertips. And we entered with the idea of creating mosquito repellent clothing and donating 50% of our profits to fund interventions across the world. So the idea that you can truly wear your heart on your sleeve, and the thing that's protecting you can actually protect more than you. It can protect other people who are really vulnerable and at high risk for some serious disease. So we entered the Grand Challenge under the guidance of some of the programs that were run as part of that. And by the end, we'd come away with $10,000 to spend, but without really any idea about how to actually spend it. And this was where all the struggles began and where the learning curve really kicked off. So we had come up with a simple model, and it was really inspired by companies that we were looking to in the social enterprise space, like Thank You Water, Who Gives a Crap, Tom's Shoes, and even local brands like Eat Your Water. And to be honest, what we were doing wasn't truthfully a new idea. Tom's Shoes had already pioneered the sort of 1-for-1 model. So one pair of shoes for another pair of shoes. And we were aiming for the same sort of thing, one t-shirt to one mosquito bed net. But even more crucially than that, our core technology wasn't a brand new idea. It was plain organic cotton t-shirt treated with permethrin. And permethrin is an active ingredient that has been used for hundreds of years, really, in trying to keep mosquitoes at bay. And in fact, it's been big brands like Kathmandu that have already pioneered, I guess, the use of mosquito repellent clothing. But what we thought we'd offer is something that looked a little bit less dorky, because no one wants to be wearing zip-off 3/4 length pants when you're walking across to the Shortland side to grab a bakehouse pie. But I'll let Pat talk a bit more about the actual mosquito problem that we were trying to solve.
Yeah, so the mosquito problem we were trying to solve is really the key question. We doubled down on the research, looking into the health problems caused by mosquitoes, and what we found blew us away. Even now, in the 21st century, 700 million people catch a mosquito-borne disease every year. Of those, 400,000 people die from just one disease, malaria. And more than that, half of those deaths are children, one child in every 2 minutes. The WHO has said time and time again that the issue is not that we don't understand the disease, malaria. It's simply that we don't spend enough money to eradicate them. That's why in 2018, of the $5 billion we need to simply sustain malaria eradication efforts, only 2.6 billion was raised. Now, it might be the case that one child every 2 minutes is one child too many. But the truth is that this was a real improvement over the turn, was a real improvement over the turn of the century when a timer was as low as 30 seconds, when the timer was low as 30 seconds. This was clear to us then that the problem we needed to tackle was a lack of money, and that generating money had to be our solution. We had our why, now we had to figure out what. Sorry.
Okay, sorry. So I think we've learned a lot of lessons along the way, and I think our supply chain really has been at the heart of a lot of our learnings. And I think the way that we've developed a lot of these learnings and these new understandings has been from feedback from our customers, and it's really been, there's been a lot of analysis into what designs customers want, what customers really want out of us. Whether it's they're keen on our products from a value proposition, whether it's our social enterprise business model, or whether it's the efficacy of having a mozzie-free day by wearing a mozzie-free tee. And so we really need to find out what was driving their purchases. Firstly, with our first order, we ordered 200 t-shirts, and with those first 200 t-shirts, there was 100 of the ones that I'm wearing now and 100 of a model very similar to the one that Bal's wearing. And I think that what we really learned out of that first order was that perfection is the enemy of good, and to create a good product is it's quicker and better to create a good product than a perfect product. From these first 200 t-shirts, because we had two different styles, what we really did was A/B test between this style and the other one. And I think what we found is that, to be honest, the other one was a lot more successful. We found that it spoke to our customers a lot better, and we realized that designs such as the one I'm wearing weren't really popular with the customers. But what we did is to fail forward, and we did we failed forward because we were able to learn from this, change our perspective on what we wanted out of our designs. And really, I think our supply chain has been our biggest weakness. I think it has been so is because it's extremely international and quite complex. It has a lot of stakeholders involved, and it has in the past made communication really difficult with this. Basically, our t-shirts come from Bangladesh by a Belgian company, then they go to Vietnam to get treated and printed, then they come here to Australia, of course, for then a sale and distribution. It's had because it had so many stakeholders, it became very hard to communicate. And I think it was also very hard to pursue a supply chain of this complexity because we were pursuing quite an ethical means of manufacture. While this initially was quite a roadblock and it made it difficult to keep ourselves to these high ethical standards, we actually found it was quite a value add, not just for our customers, in the fact that this drove them to purchasing t-shirts, but also actually to our suppliers. Our suppliers, we had a number of suppliers who we worked hard to get on board with them. And we found that the fact that we were asking for a high grade of ethical manufacture was what they specialized in. They really identified with that story. And by doing that, we were able to source products directly from them and really cut out the middleman. And by doing that, we had less points to communicate with, which meant that we could communicate a lot more clearly. And it has meant that we've been able to reduce our lead time, reduce our costs, and reduce our defect rate, which have really been some of the big issues that we've been facing. That's definitely, I think the supply chain has definitely been a large hurdle. And while we're not there yet, we're starting to overcome some of those difficulties and turn that weakness into a bit of a strength of ours.
So along with the importance of a solid supply chain, we found that clear communication was also very important to us. And from this lesson, we learned our final lesson, defining your market. As mid-20-year-old blokes all living in Newey on a coastal town known for the surf, we've always envisioned Borne as another competitor to surfwear and streetwear industry, and frequently talked about how perfectly our shirts would fit for the bush, beach, and city streets. We were projecting this onto our customers, a realization that became glaringly clear when we received our first order from someone who wasn't our mums or our close friends, a customer called Rocky.
So we were pretty stoked to meet Rocky face to face. And I really clearly remember the day when Rocky's order came through. We were all at uni and at work and quickly sending each other text messages to try and figure out who knew Rocky, because that's been the way that we'd figured out who the orders were coming from before. And at the time I had a day off, so I had the privilege of hand delivering to Rocky. Super keen to see a shirt put on Rocky's ripped back. Rocky being the long-haired surf-loving dude that we were sure Rocky must have been. So you can imagine my surprise when I met not Rocky, but Rochelle at the front doorstep of her house in an aged care village. And Rochelle, of course, preferred to go by Rocky. And this Rocky was our very first non-family and non-friend customer. And just like so many of the elderly women who have bought a Mozzie free tea since, Rocky was buying one for her grandchildren. We realized then that the customers we wanted weren't necessarily the people who wanted what we were offering. We weren't hitting the demographics that we wanted to appeal to. And we really realized that we needed to change how we go about defining that group of people, how we go about defining our market. And thanks to some input from some local marketing agencies who kind of lent us some free time to figure out how we were going to go about branding as a company, we realized that we needed to start seeing our market not as a demographic, but as a bit of a value graphic. So people who were united not just by their age, not by their location or by their gender, but by their interests and beliefs. And this sort of resonated quite clearly with us because we'd sort of built Borne Clothing on the back of these three ideals from the very start, that we were environmentally conscious, socially responsible, and design focused. And the coming together of those three ideals really allowed us to better understand who we were actually pitching our product to. And coming to that realization hasn't been an easy process, and in many ways we're still figuring it out. We haven't really gotten into the targeted marketing or advertising just yet. So we've really been building the brand on the back of this whole value graphic idea, but we do now have a clearer sense of who we are as a company and who it is that our customer is. And that's a person who doesn't like Mozzies, which is a big tick for everyone. I'm sure there's very few people who don't meet that criteria. People who are casual adventurers, weekend warriors like ourselves, who like a bit of a hike or a bit of a swim, a bit of a camp or an Arvo barbecue on the weekend, but also fundamentally care about how their clothes are made.
Cheers. So I think that there's a couple of big takeaways, I guess, from our story. And we've kind of hinted at them throughout a bit of a yarn. So number one was keeping it simple, which we heard from Siobhan very early on. And I think that if we didn't do so, we would have found ourselves in a muck and really failed to get off the mark. So keeping it simple would be the number one. Secondly, would be failing forward. So I think that with our first order, we had a lot of issues with getting it firstly to our door, and then working out what our customers wanted from it. And then by getting those takeaways from then, while we might have failed with one of our styles, we really did learn from it. So we could move forward from there. The next would be clear communication, which has been facilitated by the fact that we've been able to really slim down our supply chain, get rid of a lot of the middlemen, and clearly communicate to the sources of where our products are coming from. And then the last would be, as Bal mentioned with our story with Rocky, is defining your market. And not turning away the customers who are really coming towards you. It's about working out what products you're putting out there and tailoring it to the customers that are coming to you, as well as the customers that you want to target. So in regards to our goals for this year, our first year of operation, and then going forwards, our goal for our first year would be to donate what we received in a grant from I2N, or from the Grand Challenge in its first year, which is $10,000. Then our goal in our second year would be to impact 10,000 lives. We say that one t-shirt fund the purchase of one bed net for 2 people for 3 years. So if we talk about 10,000 lives, that's 5,000 t-shirts. Then I guess while we have these lofty goals, there are definitely going to be challenges along the way going towards them. And I think we've definitely identified a few of those through our chat today. One of them is we really want to establish ourselves as a competitive e-commerce social enterprise. A big part of that is having a solid marketing plan. And of course, that involves solid online advertising. That's a big part of something we really want to grow and develop. Then as we need to grow and we need the resources to do so, a big part will be attracting investment to be able to get the funding to run on forwards. And then, as you might have heard at the start, we all currently work full-time jobs. So we understand that this is not going to be able to go along congruently forever. So we're having those discussions now about the we need to. It's not just a balancing act between us and Borne, our jobs and Borne. It's about maximizing the time that we have available, and then maximizing the quantity of time as well. So there's some of definitely our takeaways, our goals, and then our challenges going forward. So thank you to I2N and Rich for inviting us on today. Cheers.
No problem, fellas. Thanks so much for the talk and the intro. You've been very critical about your path. You've also been very constructive about how you've taken those insights on board and really applied them. So we'll jump into a few questions now. We'll just change the slide. And you've got the mic, excellent. At the start of at registration, quite a few people submitted quite a few questions, some of which you touched on just before, but a few others. So we'll start with a question from Nora Bungie, and apologies in advance if I mince anybody's names, but she's from the University of Newcastle and has asked, your project cleverly hits 2 birds with 1 stone. Can you share how you and the team came up with the idea to address the annoyance of mosquitoes locally while supporting the battle with malaria? Was it instant, or did it take you a lot of time to figure that out? How did you find your partners? How did you navigate that landscape?
Yeah, I've got the mic now, so I might jump on that one. So I think that, as we mentioned, we kind of approached it firstly from a health equity point of view, because we both have interests. I guess we all have interests in, I guess, that belief that no matter where you are, you should be able to live a life free of preventable disease. And we thought, okay, well, that's the key thing that we want to hit. How do we facilitate this happening? And then we kind of worked out, okay, well, what's the barrier? The barrier is the funding gap. So how do we create funding? That was us kind of looking at the evidence. And then we thought, okay, we're going to create funding. We'll do it in a model like Tom's Shoes or Eat Your Water. And then we need to work out, okay, what are we going to sell? What service or product are we going to create to do so? And then it was about creating a story, bit of a through line with the mosquito issue that we face here at the campus and, in Australia, and then the mosquito issue on a global scale. So how can we tie a thread from those 2 issues to bring it together? And then, to be honest, a bit of Googling brought us to mosquito repellent clothing. And then I think once we hit that, we thought, okay, that's a good story. We're off to the races.
Yeah, very well thought out. So go for it, Alex.
So thank you, guys. Great to see the work going on from after the challenge was launched, and to see you actually trying to even get an enterprise going. I guess for me, I'm an engineer. I'm a very practical person. So does your product work? In terms of, you haven't really talked about the product. So does it repel mosquitoes for how many hours or how many days, how many years, whatever it is? So, because I think ultimately you've got to be able to address that thing. You are selling mosquitoes. So whether it's, because I know the ultimate goal is to use the proceeds to drive change, but ultimately when you're buying something for a present for someone, you want to say a little bit about that. You're very silent on that tonight. So I was wondering whether you could give me some insights into that. So anyway, back to you.
Sure. It's all a bit of a scam, really. No. So in much the same way that we realized that we weren't actually going to be able to go to these malaria-stricken places and do something ourselves. We had these very bleeding heart ideas, and we thought realized after Siobhan's point that what we needed to do is to find out who's already doing this and how can we sort of piggyback onto what they're doing and make the most of the resources that are currently available to us. So as Tim said, we did a bit of Googling around, seeing if mosquito repellent clothing was even a real thing. And we came across a company called Insect Shield. Now, Insect Shield uses this active ingredient called permethrin, and they use it much as I said earlier on, this is an age-old active ingredient. It's not some secret, KFC 11 spices recipe. It's a very straightforward chemical that's derived synthetically from natural products, naturally occurring products. A lot of them they come from the pyrethrum family, which is a species of plant. And the way that Insect Shield uses a permethrin is that they have a particular process that binds it to the fabric of the shirt. So you can actually go and buy in a lot of stores, I presume around Newcastle, some sort of wash it yourself at home kit for mosquito repellent stuff, or you can spray something on your clothing. The difference is that this particular process, and we don't know all the ins and outs of that because that's their own licensed technology, binds it to the fabric. Now, in the world of malaria, in the world of mosquitoes, the way that the efficacy of mosquito repellents is tested is with knockdown testing, which involves putting mosquitoes in a Petri dish, trapped inside with the fabric. And the way that Insect Shield's done that is they've done that at a period of different washes. And they've got extensive data on their website about the efficacy over a period of time for that. What Insect Shield states is that after 70 washes, at that point they've tested it, the shirt still retains 97% of the efficacy that it did from the beginning. Now, permethrin has two sort of main qualities, and those two qualities are what retain the 97% efficacy. And the first one is that it actually has a knockdown effect, so any mosquitoes landing on the shirt should actually fall off. It sort of temporarily incapacitates them. And the second one is that as a accumulation of that effect, it has a repellent quality to it. Now, what that also means is that it does have a bit of a halo effect, which is obviously less effective on bare skin than it is on the t-shirt itself. But in their studies, they've also shown that it does convey some sense of protection to exposed skin in the vicinity of the shirt. Now, what we've heard from our customers is that the shirt has definitely worked for them, but it hasn't kept them safe on their ankles. So the halo effect does work to a certain degree, but not to the degree of keeping your toes and your ankles safe. So socks are something that are on the horizon for us. So that's the way it works. There are other companies that do it, provide a similar service across the world, and they have varying degrees of efficacy. But at least in our experience and with the chats we've had with Insect Shield, this is the way that our product works.
And I think anecdotally, my girlfriend and I were hiking at the back of Gloucester yesterday, and I had my Borne shirt on, which is why I'm not wearing it this evening, and walked up the 1.5K hike, came down, she was eaten. I had next to none, if not none, on me, which is anecdotal at its best. But we did talk about that on the way because I said, I'm wearing my Borne shirt today. We're going trekking, and it worked.
But actually, I might just tag something onto that because I think that it's always important to keep the global fight against malaria in perspective as well. Now, it does definitely repel, but the caveat to that is that if you walk into a cloud of mosquitoes, some will inevitably land on your shirt, and you shouldn't expect that it's got an invisible force field. So in that context, we do recommend that you use sprays as an adjunct if you are walking into a cloud of mosquitoes. And the reason that we think that that's actually an acceptable quality of the product is that in the fight against malaria across the world, we don't just use mosquito nets. We don't just use permethrins. In many areas of the world, permethrins are actually something that mosquitoes are becoming resistant to. We don't seem to have that problem so far in Australia, but across the world, in keeping people safe from malaria, it's a combination of mosquito nets and residual indoor spraying and malaria testing and prophylactic medications. There's a whole array of things. And to some degree, I think that the product and what the product can offer does reflect that this is a really complex problem. We're not going to solve it with a bunch of t-shirts, but we can get people on board with the idea that together we can do something.
Excellent answer.
Students buying product
on the campus soon. They can buy it on the campus if they get on our website on the campus, but at some point there will be a physical presence as well.
Right, we'll keep with this technology link. Just to wrap up for the safety, we know adults are using it. We've seen it in your branding. Is it safe for children?
For sure. Yeah. So, like we say, thanks, Alex. Like we say, we're not hiding the fact that we're using a third-party company to treat our shirts. We are using the Insect Shield. All that information is on our website, which you can jump on and follow the entire story and get all the information. It's also on the Insect Shield website. And according to them, it is totally skin safe. It kind of comes from the fact that it resists washing out, that it doesn't wash into kind of the wastewater of the washing machine and things like that. So it is safe to, put in your washing machine, and you shouldn't worry about washing any chemicals down the drain in any kind of concentration that could affect, that matters essentially. And yeah, like I say, I'd encourage everyone to, jump onto the Insect Shield website and take a look and have a read. It's all there. All the information's there about it, and all the safety information is there about it. Yeah. We'll leave it there.
Excellent. You threaded a good needle through the learnings and the story of your journey. What was it that surprised maybe one or multiple of you most in that journey?
So one of my big real takeaways from the whole Grand Challenge process and the sort of adventure we've had over the past year is that you sort of, as a uni student in any sort of discipline, you get to the end and you become decently good, quite good, hopefully, at the thing that you're studying. And you realize when you do something like this, that you just don't know what you don't know. There's a whole world of things that you never study, you haven't studied over the past 3, 4, 5 years, that you have these massive blind spots. And the reality of blind spots is you can't see what's in them. Like you can't know these things. So one thing that's really surprised me, and I don't mean this to come across surprise in an arrogant way, but just surprised me as in it's been really important to learn and to have come to appreciate through real experience is just the real diversity of expertise and of interests and capabilities you have when you bring a multidisciplinary team together. And because it really shows you where your weak points are. It shows you what comparatively you might be better at and what comparatively you're worse at. And it's really in figuring out how those things mesh together that you're really able to make some progress. Even one thing that we commonly end up doing is that Tim and I, when we're writing a speech, we both have a separate crack at it and mash it together because we've just accepted that we have just a very different write in very different ways and we tell the story in very different ways. And that just seems like a very trivial example, but the reality is that, by blending a lot of things together, you're able to achieve something better than the sum of the total parts.
Yeah, that's great. And it really talks to the power of diversity, right? Sure. We hold things like hackathons and small challenges. And we always say to people, make sure that you look for or value a diverse team when you're looking to solve something, because those multiple points of view, it can be writing a speech, it could be developing a business plan and engaging in customer discovery. The more diversity you have in those ideas, the more you pull it apart in different ways and the better solution you come to at the end. So absolutely. Jump in, Tim.
And without Dan, I think all our shirts would look like trash. So
I was going to say about kind of getting that team together and getting recruiting people like for hackathons who have all these a different array of skills. I think that we've been able to do that as well. Or something we've strived for is recruiting people outside of our team who have amazing different experiences and skills that we don't have at all. So one thing that we've gone into is that we don't know anything about, when we started, we didn't know anything about creating garments that are ethically sustainable for not just the environment, but also about the workers that are involved in manufacturing the garments. So we've gone to a local consultant who works in the area of modern slavery prevention that consults companies about how to eliminate modern slavery from your supply chain. So they're SD strategies, and they've been amazing at helping us kind of talk to our suppliers and work to ensure that some of these atrocities aren't occurring in our supply chain. So something that we're continually striving for, and we're engaging them to ensure that. We've been able to talk to people, local marketing agencies in Newcastle, such as Mezzanine, who've helped us with our marketing. We've talked to accountants who have been able to help us with financial skills that none of us have, because none of us studied finance or did anything like that. And I think that an important part of why they've been keen to get involved is because of our mission as well. I think that's a really important part of binding kind of this team together.
Hey, just on supply chain, can you share with us the issues or delays, or how you get over the delays to keep your supply chain in sync? You've mentioned quite a few moving parts and you've got a few things in the air. What is it that you do to keep those things happening in order of operations and in a timely way, if anything?
I guess I'll speak to this because not only I kind of my role is more on the operational side, but also that this is an area that we've really struggled with. It is really difficult, especially when you're working with countries where English is a language is a barrier, as well as travel is not possible, and it hasn't been possible for the last 18 months or so. So we've really struggled with coordinating the different parts of our supply chain. We'd love to be able to jump on a plane to Vietnam and go chat to our factory and, you know, rally the team and go, oh, we want the shirt like this. It'd be wonderful. But really, I think it's only something that we're starting to crack now. And I think it's simplifying the process involved and the number of people involved, and then finding the best methods to communicate. I'm currently communicating with our printing factory via Facebook Messenger, which is actually a really effective way because it's instant messaging and you can send photos really quickly, rather than, you know, emails, which you know, it's probably that next there's a barrier there to doing so. So that's been really effective. I think it's about finding different ways to communicate clearly. And in the design of our t-shirts, we've now got a pretty good format of how to express all the different details, the different ways that we need things printed and manufactured. Because if you leave these things up to chance, then it's open to different interpretations.
That's a, yep.
How difficult was the low volume of order in helping to persuade those suppliers that you were worth the time to, do you think that was a contributing factor?
Yes, definitely. So that is one of the big problems that we've had. And when we've looked at going past just t-shirts, that's probably the biggest barrier. In t-shirts, I guess we were lucky that we were able to find a distributor that could help us get off the mark slowly, just with the first couple of hundred t-shirts. And then we were able to go straight to the distributor in Belgium and say, hey, we've bought this many t-shirts and we expect to buy this many thousand t-shirts over the next year. How about you get on board with us? Also, this is what we do and this is our mission, everything. And they've gone, yeah, sure. Well, you can purchase directly from us and it's a third of the cost. So getting off that mark initially was really difficult for that part. And then when you start going to the next step of talking about manufacture and working with factories, it becomes really difficult because I guess not only are they hesitant to take you up, but then even if they have taken you up, you're not worth the time of day to them, which is really difficult. And when you're trying to be the annoying mozzie that's buzzing around their head, trying to get them to listen to you, honestly, it's just been persistence. It's Bal and I juggling when we're at work and able to call our factory and go, hey, you heard from us yesterday, but you didn't get back to us like you said. It's about just being persistent. And if there's a little, if they leave a little window open to say, oh, we might be able to do this, it's just going forward as much as you can. Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah, just a quick parallel point to that. Kind of with the low quantities that we are ordering with the low capital that we start off with, something that was really important to us at the start was kind of optimizing the size distribution from the shirts so that we can kind of maximize the amount of people that we can essentially maximize happiness in our customers in terms of having sizes available to them. And I mean, you need data to be able to forecast that. And to get the data, we needed to make sales, and to make sales, we needed to have the data. So it was a bit of a chicken and egg situation. But we were able to do a little bit of modeling using kind of other companies' data. So we essentially took the average in Australia for the sizes, used that to kind of forecast what sizes we expected to be kind of popular. And I think that was really important, especially in the early stages, and will continue to be important. Again, optimizing the sizes that we sell, you know, and maximizing the sizes that are available to our customers that will sell out quickly, and the ones that won't sell out so quickly, trying to marry that timing up so that we sell out everything at the same time and reorder.
So did you consider doing like a pre-order promotion where you had no stock? Maybe you didn't even really have a design beyond a rendering, where you actually were taking pre-orders to help inform the sizes and maybe the styles that people liked?
So approximately 80-90% of our sales have been pre-orders so far, which has been a real adventure. It's been a great opportunity to practice saying sorry to people for not having had their shirt delivered quite on time.
Running around delivering at Christmas.
Yeah. So pre-orders have been really good in some sense because they've allowed us to sustain a bit of momentum when, because of our low amount of capital, we haven't been able to order very regularly. Because of our long lead time, it's the way it's been going at the moment. It's at least 3 months before a batch really arrives. And so in the intervening time, what can you do except for, try to keep people's attention on social media and start some pre-orders and sort of sustain a low level of interest rather than completely like feathering out. So and I think the best real culmination of that was last year, towards the end of the year, we had this pre-order for a restock of one of our most popular shirts that sold out, the Citronella one, which none of us are actually wearing tonight. And we were super, super excited to get it to people before Christmas. And it came down to the day and it was like, oh, if the shirts can get on the plane today, then we can get them before Christmas. And they managed to sneak on. And then we realized that Ozpost weren't going to be able to deliver them on time. And Sendle, who was our provider for all our shipping, they weren't going to be able to deliver on time because they were going to take even longer. And we thought, well, we've got to step up to the mark. So fortunately, we were all going in sort of different directions for Christmas. Tim was driving down to Melbourne, Pat was driving to Goulburn, I was driving to Sydney, and Dan was sort of in the Newcastle area. So we split up the parcels. We got like a free shipping distributor software, put all the addresses in and optimized the best route. And then we just, delivered about 120 parcels by hand over like a 24-hour period between here and Melbourne. So, pre-orders have been great because it's meant that we've been able to, keep in touch with our customers. And it was really great seeing people's faces when we actually turned up to deliver the shirts. They were very rural New South Wales. But yeah, it's been a stressor for sure. It's been an opportunity to learn a lot, but it's not necessarily something we want to keep sustain for the future. But yeah, we've had some pre-orders going at the markets. We started going to some markets locally for a batch that's coming in the next week or two. So we've still got a few more pre-orders to sort out, but hopefully we'll be able to get a bit more of a roll from now on.
That is absolutely wild. Somehow you need to create a case study out of what can and can't go wrong when we're making orders and delivering across, Australia, this wide open country. That is well done. That's awesome.
Would have been harder if there was a pandemic. But.
Oh yeah, totally. You mentioned before that you're happy with the designs of your t-shirts. You're happy with the visual elements of your brand. Ajay Singh has asked, you have a lot of visual elements in your marketing campaigns. How did you develop your unique marketing strategy in such a crowded, competitive space?
Sure. So I think this is probably a little bit more difficult for the three of us to answer because Dan is really the man behind our branding and our marketing. And it's really through his eye that we view everything. If I was to try to speak for him, I think really in terms of the style and the branding that we've gone for is a very sort of Newcastle vibe, but like sort of that earthy, and it really sort of coming back to what we were talking about before about the beach bush sort of city street style. It really is, in spite of what we were talking about, the value graphic, I think really the design, the key is a sort of an overlap of those three things. We've got a lot of earthy tones. We've tried to reflect like a lot of natural fauna as well. So we've got like the flower in Tim's shirt. We've got the welcome swallow, which is an Australian songbird. And we've got the citronella in the other one. And they've all got some sort of link. And the important thing is that they've got a link back to malaria and to mosquitoes in some way. So I think that's probably fair from an aesthetic point of view. Yeah. And then in terms of the branding, again, so to some degree we covered this in the talk, but it's such an extensive subject. But yeah, it's really trying to figure out what that value graphic is. At the very start, after the Grand Challenge, we sort of thought that maybe we wouldn't always do the mosquito repellent thing. And we thought that maybe that was just like a bit of an add-on that people probably wouldn't want. But, without it, we're just another t-shirt company. So really, we've realized that has to be what we're branding ourselves as, because that is our key point of difference. It's useless. It's futile trying to compete with other massive companies who have very little lead times and very much cheaper products. We should really be trying to harp on about what makes us different. And what makes us different is the mosquito repellent quality and the fact that the money gets donated to put an end to malaria.
Excellent. I noticed you, David Sivia from Feedback Organic, you had a similar question that sort of answers. Yeah, about how they deal with competitors, and you sort of moved into that perfectly, that you just set yourself apart, know what your strengths are in your brand and your purpose, and move forward that way. Yeah, excellent. You've all mentioned before that, you know, medical students, designers, engineers, you have lives outside of Borne. How do you manage the day-to-day, and how has that changed from the beginnings to now?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And I think it's something that we're yet to answer. Yeah, that's definitely something we're in conversation about, kind of around the Monday night meetings that we're having. You know, we've done our absolute best to set up. We're using a software called Asana, essentially like a time management website to manage our tasks, manage our projects, and manage the things that we're currently all working on individually. We're also using it to kind of collaborate as well. And I think the thing that we're really getting out of that is that we're trying to make it such that we can all work on things in our own time when we do have the time, and then come together through, you know, some type of software and collaborate through that asynchronously, essentially. And again, like I say, this is all, I think, going to change as our individual goals as, you know, professionals change throughout our own careers and things like that. And yeah, ask us again in another 6 months, I guess. I'm not sure. Do you guys want to?
No, I think that's
anything?
okay.
Okay.
Yeah. I think, and this is gonna, I mean, this sounds super cliche, but I think like really it's important that, you know, for all of your own entrepreneurial journeys, whatever it is that you do, as crass as it sounds, just make sure it's something that you actually care about doing. Like there's no way we'd be able to, you know, put the time that we put into it if we didn't actually want to be doing this. So like, don't do it half-heartedly, and actually find something that you think is worth putting your time into.
Yeah, evaluate purpose and go forward. Absolutely. Speaking to balancing time, have you, or do you now, or do you plan to automate any of your processes, ordering, sales, marketing, accounting, all of that? Do you do it now? How do you do it?
It's definitely something that's like a real growth area for us. I think when you start doing anything, or maybe not, we did, when we started off with a lot of manual processes. So I think that's, you know, ordering, stock fulfillment, advertising. At the moment, it's all pretty manual, but it's creating those train tracks to say, okay, how do we automate these things so that we can dedicate the limited amount of time that we have at the moment towards the things that we want to be spending our time on, which is strategy and design and innovation in different parts of our business. So a few things that we're looking at doing is definitely in the marketing advertising sphere. I kind of mentioned that as one of our goals is automating. I guess it's not even, it's probably jumping to the next step, which is being able to advertise through social medias, and then get customers into workflows to be able to push out emails and different advertising content to them in an automated manner, so that we can bring them towards our business and turn them from potential customers into customers. I think that's important. Like, I think you can't really do that in a non-automated way, and it's a massive leap when you go from not having that to having that. Stock fulfillment at the moment is just us, but stock management for us is at the moment, that's definitely one of our pain points. It's very manual, and we're looking at the different softwares that we need to bring on board to say, okay, how can we make stock management and stock tracking so much easier and trackable, especially when at the moment we're selling through online, but we're also selling through, you know, some market stalls, which have been very good at, it's a very good opportunity for us to be in touch with customers, which we're not usually able to when we're operating as an e-commerce business. So we want to keep doing that, but how do we bring that and our online sphere into a single stock fulfillment and stock management stream? Yeah, it's something that we need to automate. We really do.
We have time for a couple more questions. We're getting to the end of our talk. How did the Grand Challenge support your idea in the early days, and how does it keep going? How do you position your recent result in the 2020 Grand Challenge? How is it helping you move forward now?
I'm just like a big fan of the Grand Challenge, and I'm not saying this just because you guys are here, but because I think really, we all go to uni because we want to learn to do something, we want to change the world for the better, impact the world in some way. And the Grand Challenge is really an opportunity, completely risk-free, to be like, just have a crack at giving an idea. And then if you win some money, then it's completely guilt-free. You can use that money however you want and actually try and do something. I think what really that's given us is a lot of freedom. And that first one was really just, I guess, opening our eyes to the fact that, we can do something. $10,000 isn't a huge amount in the scheme of ending malaria, but it's like a good enough amount to be able to get something off the ground. And that's what the experience we've definitely had. And then I think revisiting it in that second year, in much the same way that, coming back to Siobhan's advice about keeping it simple, I think after, maybe 12 months of sort of brainstorming and putting something into action, it was a chance to be like, well, we've sort of gone off in all these different tangential directions. How can we reconsolidate what we're doing and submit something that's worthy of the competition? So for us, it was bringing out a children's line, because we were going off in all these crazy directions about how we could, grow the brand and which direction we were going to go in. And we just came back to the same stats that we looked at from the very beginning, which is that of the 400,000 people who die every year from malaria, more than half of those are children. And that's 1 every 2 minutes. And we realized that we were pushing this whole campaign on the back of this awful statistic. We're trying to protect children overseas, but we weren't doing anything to keep people safe from mosquitoes, anything to keep children safe from mosquitoes in Australia. So it was a real chance to simplify what we were doing and say, look, this is what we're selling people, but we're not actually doing it. So we're going to come back to the drawing board, reconsolidate, and go off in a more a direction that better suits what the ethos is. Yeah. So it's been a chance to, just to revisit and regroup.
You titled your presentation this evening, How Not to Start a Social Enterprise. This question's from Emma O'Brien, who asks, if you had your time again, what would you do differently?
I think that maybe this question might actually change, but I think maybe between the three of us. I think for me, the real learning curve has been that perfect is the enemy of good. And the fact that it took us till July to get a product out, when I know we've got a lead time now of 2 to 3 months, but we could have had something out much sooner. And we just deliberated and we got into the weeds of registering as a company and not even successfully. I mean, we actually had to ring ASIC because we gave the wrong names to ASIC for our company registration. Unfortunately, they didn't charge us to change because it would have cost us almost double what we paid for the needless registration. So we got it down in the weeds a lot. I think just having a go and doing something with the money that we had would have been the best thing to do from the start.
I'm not sure I have anything to add. I totally agree. Kind of get started quickly, get something off the ground. I think that's what we would change. It's difficult when you've kind of got a designer that's as good as we've got with Dan, who it has made like really good looking garments, and he took his time and made really good progress with that. You get started quickly, I guess. Cool.
Excellent. Well, we're about to wrap up. So thanks, Bal. Thanks, Pat. Thanks, Tim. And Dan's not here, but thanks to the four of you for what you've put together, where you've come from, your involvement in the Grand Challenge, and then again, taking part in Startup Stories. We're so grateful to have you here and have you part of the I2N. And thanks again for your engaging story and time this evening.
Thanks. And I just want to really thank Siobhan and Richard for all their support. They've just been overwhelmingly behind us over the past 12 to 18 months. We were super stoked when you reached out with the email. We thought that we'd finally made it because we've been to 1 or 2 of these ourselves, and actually it's been just a reflection on how many mistakes we've made. So I don't know whether to thank you really, but thanks for the support and for having us along to share what we've learned.
It's a reflection on where you've come from and what you've done and what you've achieved. So before we wrap up, I'll just close with a few things that are coming up and that everyone here and with us virtually and watching the recording later can get involved in. Join the Dots is our monthly networking event. It happens on the last Thursday of every month. So from the 29th of April, we'll be inviting a bunch of founders to come in and talk about their experience pitching for the things that they need within their venture. Come in, you'll meet a few speakers. If you don't know anybody, at the very least, you'll know them, and you'll be able to strike up conversation about how you can move forward with your own pitching. We've got the Hunter Innovation Festival happening in May. It's going to be a huge amount of activity. Newcastle will be an absolute hive of things happening. And we have, first off the rank from us, is the funding roadmap, which is delivered by Oz Industry, Nat Gillum. She'll be talking about grants that support innovative startups and scale-ups to move forward on whatever it is they're doing. They'll be presenting from here and virtually, much like this evening. It'll be a hybrid event. And coming up after Nat will be Jennifer Holland from ThroatScope. She's a local founder, biomed founder, who's gone absolutely global with her product. If you look at anything that she's done as far as forward sales go, she's really mastered that. She understands how to sell first and then take orders first and get them out the door as quickly as possible. And she'll be talking with us at the hub and virtually in a hybrid event about her time founding ThroatScope and then moving that across Europe, the US, Asia, and the UK. Our incubator is ongoing. We have ongoing intakes by application. Come and learn about our incubator here at I2N Hub at Hunter Street. We have another hub at Williamtown, and very soon and excitingly, we'll be opening Honeysuckle. So if you want to know more about that, come see us, come see Siobhan or I, or go to newcastle.edu.au/incubator, read about our hubs, understand what Honeysuckle is and what you can gain from being a part of that community, and learn more and when that's going to open up later in the year. And finally, Venture Mentor Service, or VMS, is our mentoring program. It's unique and bespoke. We have a team of mentors dedicated to a team of founders or a venture. They help you work through any of the problems that you're seeing, any of the problems you're experiencing. You can leverage their expertise. That we have a team of roughly 30 odd mentors a part of that program. And they're willing to help you move your venture on to level up really where you are now and where you can move in the future. So if you want to know more about that, go to newcastle.edu.au/VMS, put a venture EOI in and see where that takes you. But that's it from us at the I2N. Thanks again, everybody. Thanks again for everyone with us at home. And we'll see you at the next event.